Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America online, thisweekinamerica.us. Called an interesting children's book that even the young at heart will enjoy. New from talented storyteller David Omandi, Is the Crow a Bad Bird? A delightful story that shares a fun little adventure of a curious crow. David is known for his ability to craft interesting stories that appeal and delight young audiences everywhere. He's the author of the Benedict and the Chameleon trilogy, Benedict and the Magic Chameleon, Benedict Meets Layla and the Dark Planet, also The Crow is a Smart Bird. Other works by David soon to be published. David is a native of Kenya, coming to America at the beginning of the millennium. Inspired by the folklore and stories told by his grandmother and mother while young, he's worked with children in public schools and in a children's village, studied psychology and worked in a psych unit dealing with those having behavioral issues. David Omandi, author of Is the Crow a Bad Bird? Our guest on today's This Week in America. David, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Rick.
This is such a delightful story, as I mentioned, for people young at heart, all ages. You'll enjoy having a chance to look at this book. First of all, let's talk about where you get your ideas for these books. I mentioned the Benedict and the Chameleon series. This is the second book that you've devoted to crows. Where do these ideas come from for these stories?
As you know, Rick, stories have always been a primary form of communication. They are timeless links to ancient tradition, legends, myths, and symbols. So some are about collaboration and connection, and it's just a real-life experience that, you see and you feel like it's something you want to write about.
Well, yes, and once you get an idea, in the case of Is the Crow a Bad Bird, talk about how you develop the storyline. You get it, I'm sure you have to go back and go over it several times to get it so it's getting the message, not using way too many words, but colorful enough words that tell the story adequately. What's that like, the storytelling process, once you've got a general line in mind where the story is going to go back and actually do the text for it?
Yeah, it's just the stories is just how we are wired. They take place in the imagination, to the human brain, and imagining experience are processed the same way the real experience is processed. So it just takes a little bit of time every day. You feel about filling in blanks of the story that you make.
Is that part of what makes a good storyteller, is that vivid imagination? And in your case, I guess this goes back to, as I mentioned, with your grandmother and your mother that were very active storytellers. Is that where it all begins?
That's where it was, it's how we are brought up, that's when we sit around campfire and we are at the end of the day, when, when everything is silent, then, they tell you about stories. They tell stories about things that happen, sometimes, scary stuff, sometimes very interesting. It's just to make the evening go by lively,
Yes, and that happened at an early age for you. When did you decide that you enjoyed listening to the stories, but you like telling the stories as well? When did that craft kick in that, I can tell these stories too, and you're a published author now because of that? When did that kick in where you realized, I want to be part of this too, I can tell a story?
I think it's just, you got to know something about children, Children learn how to behave, think, or act through the characters that they meet through story. So when I grew up, I just, I said that what I heard from my mother and my grandma, I can tell those through, through picture books or sometimes, through a song, and, I just put it together because the one thing about the story is that they are most fundamental way in which we communicate.
The book we're talking about, and it's just one of many written by our guest on the program, David Omandi. The book is called Is the Crow a Bad Bird? Omandi is spelled O-M-O-N-D-I. The book's available wherever books are sold. Several websites, and you can link onto those directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, ovidsing.com, OVID, SINGH.com, and Benedict and the Magical Chameleon.com. an excellent website as well. Talk about the illustration part of this, because it advances the story, it enhances the story. An excellent book cover. You've got great illustrations through the book. Well, let's talk about the book cover first of all, because that really, with the colors and the picture, that really captures a young person's attention, I'm sure.
Yeah, the for one to read your book, you gotta put what captures the eye. So the picture here that you see right now is about the child and the mother going back to the house when they have their hot grill with the spare ribs on the grill. While you see the crow is a very smart and intelligent bird. It waits to take that opportunity in order to pounce at the ribs. So that it captures the eye to just see how the crow is very intelligent. Takes his time and waits for that good opportunity to do that.
And I just noticed that as I'm looking at a picture of that on the screen here, that his eyes tell the whole story. Like, okay, they're leaving. This is my opportunity to have lunch today. And you can see that in his face. The book is beautifully illustrated. Is The Crow a Bad Bird? I mentioned in the beginning the study of psychology and working with children. Talk about the impact that's had on honing your skills as a children's author. With psychology is the study of the mind and its function, especially those affecting the human brain. So in child psychology, the most important part of child psychology is the developmental psychology. And in developmental psychology, it mainly processes children from birth to adolescence, Yeah. And the scope of the study that includes motor skills, cognitive development, language skills, social change, emotional development. And, in storytelling is, as I said earlier on, children learn how to behave and think and act through the characters that they meet through story. So it's a story that it's like that's how we connect. It has meaning and purpose. So I guess I never really thought of that before, but there is a relationship between storytelling and psychology then, isn't there?
That's correct, yes. Because the stories is how we think, and it makes meaning of life. You can call them schemes or scripts or maps or metaphors, but it's how we are wired, because the story takes place in the imagination. To the human brain, as psychology is about human brains and thinking. So that imaginal experience are processed the same way the real life is experienced.
This is the second book, I believe, that you've written using a crow. Is The Crow a Bad Bird? And the book, The Crow is a Smart Bird. And I heard you talk there with some respect for the bird. What is it about the crow that you respect and you portray in the books?
The crow is a very intelligent bird, and it is just the way it compared it with all the birds. The crow has been known to be so resourceful, so it can use, it's a proficient tool master, and it can also solve complex and puzzles. So that's why I like to use the crow as they call the family, they call COVID, as the character in this book here, because they are very much intelligent.
The book is The Crow a Bad Bird? David Omandi is our guest and the author. That's OMONDI. The book's available wherever books are sold. You'll find a couple of websites, ovidsing.com and Benedict and the Magical Chameleon.com. Both of those available, the links available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And you can go to the website and link on directly to David's website. Great information on the books, a very entertaining website as well. I mentioned that you came to the country from Kenya. Talk about the influence of Kenyan culture in general on who you are today, who you are as an artist and a writer.
Yeah, in Kenya you have this storytelling and oral tradition of all kinds are very active in Kenya, from villagers exchanging riddles to television programs that, always use folktales in their stories. And, as Kenya is made up of diversity ethnic groups, so each group have its own variety of stories to tell. So that's why you find that storytelling in Kenya, though in America also you have your own storytelling here. But one style is not better than our style. It's that they are each adaptive within their own cultures.
How difficult was that for you? How challenging was that for you when you came to the U.S.? And things are, from what you just said, I'm taking it things are a little bit different in terms of the storytelling procedure between Kenya and the new country of the United States. How challenging was that to sort of go back and use a little bit of both cultures in your writing?
As I mentioned, that one style is not better than the other one, but it's just the way they each adaptive within their own cultures. The Americans are more obsessed with their personal stories, Americans are more focused on their own roles, their feelings, their preferences, and their thoughts in the events. For example, when the Americans will talk about birthday parties, and children will talk about what present they got, how happy they were, what they did, and what kind of cake they had. So, it's kind of, that's how they see it.
Is part of your success a writer of children's book, David Omandi, our guest in the program, author of the new children's book, Is the Crow a Bad Bird? Is part of the success you had the fact that obviously you are an observer. You're sort of in tune with our thoughts, our feelings, what motivates us, that type of thing. Is that a very important part of writing for you, the observational part of it?
Yeah, it comes also with the creativity and psychology. The creative thinking involves making new connections between different regions of the brain. And in stories, is about collaboration and connection. So the story themselves, they transcend generations, engage us through emotion, and connect us to others too. So we through stories we share passion, sadness, hardship, and joy. So that's how I see it, Rick.
That's interesting. We're back to that connection again between psychology and storytelling with David Omandi. You can link onto his website, get information on the books. A great gift idea, especially this time of year, by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. What's that like for you as a storyteller, as a writer, when you get this response, when you're in with a group of children and they're reading the book and they're entertained by your story, learning something at the same time, but we don't call it necessarily educational. They don't want to hear that, but they're entertained and they learn something, the message you get across in the book. What does that do for you? How do you feel when you see the smiles on their faces as they're reading one of your books?
It is amazing, It is amazing when, children respond to the story because, children pretty much love to a good storyteller to tell them and to bring that story alive, They, it's just as I say that the stories is how we are wired. And, kids are wired differently from us. And they what adults take for granted, kids take it seriously. And through what we've heard, they haven't heard yet. It's the first time they're hearing it. So stories is just easier to understand and relate to. And it's just how we think, make meaning of life, Craig.
I get the impression you've got a number of stories yet to be told. I mentioned you've got some books just about ready to be published. What are some of the storylines you're working on?
Right now, I'm trying to work on I'm trying to publish Benedict and the Magic Chameleon just to make it more finer before I embark on working on more children's books that deal with real life, experiences, what they see, what they heard, and just to include some of the myths and mythologies, the myths and the legends, the heroes that we have encountered, in their lives too,
So it sounds like there are no shortages of ideas. You have plenty of ideas that you would like to to get published and to share these stories with people, young people, not only in the United States but across the entire globe. You've been working with
Yes.
Reader's Magnet on this project. Talk about the experience in working with them and helping you get the word out in marketing your series of books.
Reader's Magnet is an amazing marketing. They have the way they market so far since I started with them is just so they did a lot of good things as far as marketing is concerned. You know, they have taken my books to children's combined exhibition in Italy, and recently the Miami book event, which has been quite a success.
Yes.
They have exposed my books to so many people that I've never imagined can really reach the book.
Yeah, the book fairs, the international book fairs, have to be quite rewarding as an author. Just find that your book is being featured at one of those. You mentioned Miami, which is known, well, throughout the world, a very impeccable reputation for what they do for authors there. A minute or so left in the program. Who are some of your influences, some of the writers that you look up to that do a very good job of combining this psychology that we just talked about in children's storytelling, so they're entertaining and they're instructive as well?
I have one of the psychologists called the John Piaget. He's a child psychologist, and what he said very well is that from the moral as from intellectual point of view, the child is born neither good nor bad, but master of his destiny. And that being a master of their destiny is how we as a storyteller can make that happen. Because through storytelling, you can see them smile, you can see them try to really relate to that story in their own way.
Just sort of the magic, the power of storytelling. David Omandi, our guest on the program. That's Omandi. If you're going to Google it, you can go directly to one of two websites that David has, ovidsing.com. That's OVIDSINGH.com. And Benedict and the Magical Chameleon.com. Or you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to both of those websites. Get information on the book we're talking about today, Is the Crow a Bad Bird?, or any of the other books that David has written. And if you go to his website, you'll get information on upcoming projects that David will be involved in. David, this has been fun. I really admire your talent, what you've been able to do. Thank you so much for sharing it with us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Rick. It's been a pleasure.
It has been our pleasure, sir. David Omandi, the guest on the program. The book is called Is the Crow a Bad Bird? And you'll get all the information by linking onto our website, thisweekinamerica.us. We're back on today's program right after these messages.